Once upon a time, in the heart of Lagos, there lived a young girl named Adiz. She was only 19, but life had already shaped her into a woman far older than her years. Every morning before the sun rose fully, Adiz would wrap her mother's old scarf around her head, tie her apron, and carry her small cooler of food to the busy junction where she sold breakfast. She made akara, puff-puff, and hot pap. Her hands worked fast, her eyes always alert, and her back bent from lifting heavy pots and carrying water. But no matter how tired she felt, she always smiled. It wasn't a big smile. It was a quiet, tired one, like a candle trying to stay lit in the wind. People passed her every day, some bought, some didn't. But she never let her smile fade. That smile was for her mother, who was sick and couldn't get out of bed anymore. It was also for herself, to remind her that there was still hope, even if only a little. Right across from her stall, under a big mango tree, sat a man. He was old, thin, and always wore the same brown kaftan. He had a long grey beard and dark glasses that covered his eyes. In his hands, he held a small plastic bowl. A sign sat beside him that read, "I am blind. Please help." He never begged loudly. He didn't say much at all. He just sat there, still, peaceful, with his head slightly bowed. His name was Baba Musa. Nobody really knew where he came from. He never spoke about his past, and most people didn't care to ask. But Adiz noticed him. Every morning, before she served her first customer, she would walk over to him and drop a 200 Nigerian nairas note into his bowl. He never reached out to ask for it. He never begged her. She just did it. "Good morning, Baba Musa," she would say with a soft voice. "God bless you." And every time, he would nod slowly, raise his head slightly, and whisper, "Thank you, daughter." That was all. Then she would go back to her stall, set up her pots, light her small stove, and begin frying. But not everyone understood her. One morning, while Adiz was scooping pap into a cup for a customer, her friend Ngozi came walking down the road with another girl named Ikenna. Ngozi had her nails painted red and wore high heels that clicked loudly as she walked. She stopped in front of Adiz's stall and pointed. "Again," she said loudly. "You're still giving that old man money." Adiz looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" Ngozi rolled her eyes. "That blind beggar. You give him money every day. Why? You don't even have enough for yourself." Adiz wiped her hands on a cloth. "It's just 200 Nigerian nairas." "And so," Ikenna added, 200 every day is 1,400 Nigerian nairas in 1 week. That's over 5,000 Nigerian nairas in 1 month. Do you know what you can do with that kind of money? Buy a better stove. Buy yourself new shoes. Even help your mother more." Adiz didn't respond immediately. She looked down at her old sandals, then back at Baba Musa who was sitting quietly under the tree. "I know," she finally said, "but I just feel like I should help him." Ngozi scoffed. "Feel? You're letting your feelings make you poor. One day you'll be the one begging on the road, and he'll still be sitting there doing nothing." Adiz looked at her customer and handed him the cup of pap. Then she smiled and said, "If I can still help someone, then maybe I'm not that poor." Ngozi shook her head. "You're soft, Adiz. That's your problem. Life is hard. Nobody cares if you're kind." "I care," Adiz said simply. Ikenna smirked. "Suit yourself. But don't come crying when you're broke and hungry." They walked away, their laughter fading into the sound of passing buses. Adiz stood still for a moment. Her heart was quiet, but her hands were trembling slightly. She wiped her eyes quickly before anyone could see. Then she turned back to her stall and continued working. As the day went on, more customers came. Some smiled at her. Some didn't even look at her face. A few threw money at her table like she was invisible. But she kept moving, kept serving, and kept smiling. Around noon, the sun was high and hot. Adiz took a small break, wiped her face, and drank some water. She looked across the road and saw Baba Musa still sitting in his usual spot, not moving. She took a piece of puff-puff from her cooler, wrapped it in paper, and crossed the road. Baba Musa, she called softly. Are you hungry? He lifted his head slightly. You have already done enough, daughter. I had some extras, she said. Please take it. He reached out slowly. His hands were thin, with veins that looked like lines drawn on paper. He took the food and gave a small nod. God will reward you, he said. Adiz smiled. Amen. She turned to walk away, but then stopped and looked back. Baba Musa, were you always blind? He didn't answer right away. For a moment, it felt like the air around them had stopped moving. Then he said, I have seen enough in this life. Maybe it is better this way. Adiz didn't understand, but she nodded and walked back to her stall. Later that evening, as she packed her things, Ngozi came back again. This time she didn't laugh. She just stood nearby, watching her. You know, she said, you could be making more money if you stopped being so emotional. Adiz didn't reply. Ngozi folded her arms. Let me ask you something. That man, what has he ever done for you? Has he ever said thank you? Has he ever even smiled at you? He says thank you, Adiz replied. Every single time. Ngozi rolled her eyes. Fine. But don't be surprised if one day you find out he's just pretending. People lie, Adiz. Even beggars. Adiz finished packing her cooler. Then let him lie. My kindness is not about him. It's about me. For once, Ngozi had nothing to say. She just walked away, shaking her head. That night, Adiz went home to their small one-room apartment. Her mother lay on the mattress, coughing lightly. The room was hot and dark, with only one bulb that blinked from time to time. Adiz knelt beside her and wiped her face with a wet cloth. Mama, she whispered. Just hold on. I'm trying. Her mother opened her eyes slowly. You are doing well, my child. You have always had a good heart. Adiz forced a smile. I gave Baba Musa some puff-puff today. Her mother nodded weakly. That man. There's something about him. Keep being kind, Ada. You never know who is watching. Adiz didn't understand what her mother meant, but she held her hand and whispered, Good night, Mama. As she lay down on the mat beside her mother, Adiz thought about everything. Her broken stove, the rain that always threatened her stall, her mother's hospital bills, and Baba Musa's quiet face under the mango tree. She didn't have much, but she had her heart. And every day, as long as she could, she would choose kindness. The next morning, Adiz woke up before dawn again. Her back ached from the hard floor, but she didn't complain. She moved quietly around the small room, trying not to wake her mother, who was still fast asleep under a thin wrapper. The air was humid. There was no light, and the rechargeable lamp had died in the night. Adiz struck a match and lit a small candle. She placed it inside an empty bottle to keep the wind from blowing it out. She packed her cooler, tied her scarf neatly, and gently kissed her mother's forehead. I'll be back soon, Mama. Rest well. Then she stepped outside. The sky was still dark, but the streets were already alive with movement. Buses honked. Hawkers shouted. And the scent of frying beans and smoke filled the air. When Adiz got to her usual spot at the junction, she placed her cooler down, brought out her small stove, and started her fire. She poured oil into her frying pan, waited for it to heat, then began shaping akara balls with quick, practiced hands. As always, Baba Musa was already sitting under the mango tree. Adiz dried her palms on a towel and walked over to him with her usual 200 Nigerian nairas. Good morning, Baba Musa. He lifted his head slightly and nodded. Thank you, daughter. She smiled and turned back to her stall. But something felt different that day. As she worked, she noticed more people whispering than usual. They pointed in her direction. Some giggled. Others just looked and shook their heads. Adiz tried to ignore them. But her heart grew heavy. She wasn't doing anything wrong. Why were they looking at her like that? Soon, Ngozi and Ikena came walking down the road again. Their expressions were full of drama, like they had come to act in a movie. Look who we have here, Ngozi said loudly, folding her arms. Madam Charity. Adiz continued frying without looking up. You don't even listen, Ikenna added. Are you not tired of wasting money on that man? Has he ever even told you his story? Adiz kept quiet. Exactly. Ngozi shouted. He just sits there like a log. You don't even know who he is. He could be a fraud. He's blind, Adiz said without turning. What story do you expect him to tell? Ngozi leaned closer. Blind or not, people lie. Haven't you heard of fake beggars before? I don't think he's lying, Adiz replied calmly. But even if he is, that's between him and God. My job is to give. Ikenna laughed. Your job is to be poor? Because that's what you're becoming. Poor and foolish. Adiz looked up at them, her eyes firm but gentle. I may not have plenty, but I know what I'm doing. If helping someone makes me foolish, then I don't mind. Ngozi hissed. Keep playing Mother Teresa. Just know that one day, nobody will be there to help you. They turned and walked away. Adiz's hands shook slightly as she flipped the akara in the oil. She blinked fast to stop her tears. But the words stayed in her head like smoke that wouldn't leave. Maybe they were right. Maybe she was wasting money. But then she glanced at Baba Musa across the street. He hadn't moved. He just sat there quietly, like he always did, with the same stillness, the same calmness. And deep inside, Adiz knew she couldn't stop. She just couldn't. Later that day, she counted her money. It wasn't much. 3,200 Nigerian nairas. She sighed and packed her things. On the way home, she stopped at the chemist to buy some cough syrup for her mother. The pharmacist shook his head when she saw the prescription. This one is more serious now. You need to take her to the hospital, the woman said. I don't have enough money yet, Adiz replied, her voice small. Then save fast, the woman said. Because if that cough touches her chest, it will be worse. Adiz thanked her and walked home, dragging her feet the entire way. When she got to the room, her mother was sitting up, coughing weakly into a handkerchief. Adiz dropped her bag and rushed to her. Mama, I got you something for the cough. Her mother smiled faintly. Thank you, my child. Adiz sat beside her and held her hand. Mama, do you think I'm foolish for helping someone every day when I don't even have enough? Her mother looked at her with soft eyes. No, I think it's beautiful. You're giving what you can. That's what matters. Some people have millions and don't give 1 naira. Adiz rested her head on her mother's shoulder and closed her eyes. I just hope I'm doing the right thing. You are, her mother whispered. Keep your heart soft. The world needs more people like you. The next day came with bad news. Rain fell hard during the night. When Adiz got to the junction, her kiosk was soaked. Water had entered the cooler, spoiling the bread and puff-puff she had prepared overnight. Her stove was rusty. The small umbrella she used to cover her table had been blown away. She stared at the mess, her chest tight with panic. A few traders nearby whispered as she stood there in the mud, holding her spoiled food. One of them, a woman who sold recharge cards, walked over. I'm sorry, Adiz. That rain was something else. Adiz nodded slowly. I don't even know where to start. I lost some goods too. But, yours looks worse. Adiz forced a smile. I'll manage. She packed up what she could and sat under the mango tree, beside Baba Musa. You're not selling today? He asked in a low voice. My things got destroyed, she replied. He nodded slowly. I heard the rain. Adiz looked at him. You always sit here. Don't you ever get tired? No, he said. Some people sit and watch. Some people walk and pass. But the one who gives, she is the only one who truly sees. She blinked. What do you mean? But he didn't answer. He simply adjusted his glasses and leaned back against the tree. Later that afternoon, Adiz went to the market to check the price of a new stove. It had gone up again. 15,000 Nigerian nairas. She only had 3,000 Nigerian nairas. As she walked home, someone snatched her small purse. It happened so fast. 1 second she was walking, the next, A young boy ran past her and grabbed it. "Hey!" she shouted, chasing after him. But he disappeared into the crowd. Her knees dropped to the ground. That 3,000 Nigerian nairas was all she had left. She didn't cry. She just sat there, too tired to feel anything. After a while, she stood up and walked home. When she got there, her mother was coughing non-stop. She looked worse. Adiz panicked and ran to the landlord's flat. "Uncle, please, I need help. My mother needs to go to the hospital. Can you lend me?" The landlord didn't let her finish. "Adiz, you haven't paid rent for 2 months. I'm giving you till Friday. If you don't pay, you and your mother will have to leave." "But she's sick." "I'm sorry. I've been patient. But I can't wait forever." He closed the door. Adiz stood there, shaking. She went back inside, sat beside her mother, and held her hand. That night, she didn't sleep. She just stared at the ceiling, her thoughts loud and painful. What if Ngozi was right? What if she was being foolish? The next morning, she decided to sell at a different junction. Maybe new customers would give her more. But as she walked past the usual tree where Baba Musa sat, she paused. Should she give him the 200 Nigerian nairas again? She opened her bag and counted. She had only 1,500 Nigerian nairas. That money had to buy beans, flour, pepper, and firewood. She stood there for a long time. Then finally, slowly, she reached into her bag and brought out the 200 Nigerian nairas. She crossed the road and placed it in his bowl. "I almost didn't come today," she whispered. Baba Musa nodded. "But you did." As she turned to leave, she heard him say something strange. "Hold on, daughter." She stopped and looked back. Baba Musa slowly removed his glasses. His eyes were hidden behind heavy lids, but for a moment, she thought she saw something flicker, like light in the darkness. "There is something I need to tell you," he said. Adiz looked confused. "What is it?" Before he could answer, a car drove by loudly, and the noise drowned his words. He closed his mouth and placed the glasses back on. "Never mind. Go on." She frowned, but didn't ask again. She just nodded and walked away. But something about his voice stayed in her mind. It was clearer, stronger, almost like he wasn't blind at all. The sky was still dark when Adiz opened her eyes. Her body felt heavy. She had barely slept the night before. Every time she closed her eyes, her mind took her back to the landlord's words. "You have till Friday." It echoed in her head like a drumbeat. Friday was only 2 days away, and she didn't even have 1 naira saved for rent. She didn't know what to do. The worst part was her mother's health. The cough had gotten louder. Last night, she had coughed so much, she couldn't sleep, and now her chest sounded like it was filled with stones. Adiz stood up quietly and touched her forehead. It was hot. She bent beside her and whispered, "Mama, I'll come back soon. Just hold on, please." Her mother opened her eyes slowly and nodded. Adiz packed her cooler and stepped outside. The air was cold, and the clouds looked heavy. Another rain might fall. She didn't care. All she knew was she had to make enough money today, even if she had to stand under the rain. By the time she reached the junction, the road was already noisy. Buses were honking, traders were opening their stalls, and people were rushing to work. Adiz set up her stove, poured oil into her frying pan, and began to fry a kara. She worked quickly, thinking of all the things she had to buy. Medicine for her mother, food for the house, maybe even start saving for rent. She had barely finished frying the first batch when she saw Ngozi walking toward her again. This time, she was not alone. Ikenna was with her, and both of them were laughing. "Still at it?" Ngozi said, shaking her head. "You really don't learn." Adiz looked up but didn't speak. Ngozi pointed to Baba Musa across the road. "He's still sitting there. You're still giving him money." Adiz quietly placed 2 akara balls in a paper and handed it to a customer. Ngozi stepped closer. "Look, Adiz, I'm not trying to fight. I just want you to open your eyes. That man, he's not what you think." "What do you mean?" Adiz asked. Ikenna folded her arms. People talk. That man is not really blind. Adiz froze. What? Ngozi nodded. Someone said they saw him walking around at night without his stick. No glasses. Just walking like a normal person. Adiz laughed a little. That's not possible. Why not? Ngozi snapped. You think all beggars are honest? You think everyone who wears dark glasses is blind? Adiz tried to ignore them, but their words began to scratch her chest. I don't know who he is, Adiz said slowly, but I know I give because I want to, not because of who he is. Ikenna rolled her eyes. Then don't cry when you have nothing. They walked away, still laughing. Adiz looked across the road. Baba Musa was sitting in his usual spot, head slightly bowed, bowl in front of him. She didn't want to believe what they said, but her hands shook as she poured more oil into the pan. A few hours later, the sky turned dark, and heavy rain began to fall. Adiz quickly tried to cover her stall with the torn umbrella she had, but the wind was too strong. Her stove went off. The akara got soaked. Her cooler started filling with water. She watched helplessly as everything she worked for that morning got destroyed again. She fell to her knees and held the pan, trying to scoop water out, but it was useless. She was soaked from head to toe. Her scarf was dripping. Her hands were shaking, and her lips started to tremble. She looked across the road again. Baba Musa was still sitting under the mango tree, but something looked different. He wasn't holding his bowl. He had moved slightly out of the rain, sitting upright. His face looked calm. Too calm. Adiz stood up slowly and walked over to him. Baba Musa, she called. He turned his head slightly. Yes, daughter. Are you okay? He nodded. Rain cannot wash away the truth. She frowned. What truth? He didn't answer. He only reached into his bag and brought out a small cloth to wipe his face. Adiz stood there, confused. Then she walked back to her stall. By evening, the rain had stopped, but Adiz had nothing left to sell. She packed her wet things into her bag and started walking home. When she got to her street, she noticed people gathered in front of her house. Her heart started beating fast. She ran forward, pushing past two women. What's going on? She asked. One man turned to her. The landlord locked your door. He said you didn't pay rent. No, 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 Adiz whispered. My mother is inside. She ran to the door and tried to open it. It was locked from outside. She banged on it hard. Mama, Mama, can you hear me? A soft voice came from inside. Adiz. She turned to the landlord, who was standing nearby with his arms crossed. Open the door, she shouted. Please. She's sick. She needs air. I gave you a warning, he said coldly. You ignored it. She'll die in there. The man looked away. A neighbor came forward. Please, just let the girl take care of her mother. She will pay. She's a good girl. After a long silence, the landlord sighed and threw her the key. Adiz rushed inside. Her mother was lying on the floor, struggling to breathe. Her lips were dry. Her skin was cold. Adiz knelt beside her and held her hand. Mama, I'm here. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Her mother looked at her weakly. It's not your fault. You've tried. Adiz started crying. No, I haven't done enough. I need to take you to the hospital. I need money. Her mother shook her head slowly. Just stay with me. That's enough. But Adiz knew it wasn't. That night, she couldn't sleep. She sat beside her mother, watching her chest rise and fall slowly. Her face was pale. Her cough was dry now, almost silent. And that scared Adiz more. In the middle of the night, she made a decision. She had to get help, even if it meant begging. She stepped outside and walked down the dark street. The whole area was quiet. Even the dogs had stopped barking. She didn't know where she was going, but her feet led her. And somehow, without planning it, she found herself standing in front of the mango tree. Baba Musa was not there. His usual mat was folded. His bowl was gone. She looked around. Nothing. She stood there for a long time. Then she sat down under the tree, hugging her knees. Tears rolled down her face. God, please, she whispered. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm tired. I'm trying my best. But nothing is working. I'm tired. Just then, headlights appeared down the road. A black SUV slowly pulled up beside her. She stood up quickly, wiping her face. The window rolled down. A man in a dark suit leaned out. Are you Adiz? She froze. Yes. Baba Musa wants to see you. Her heart jumped. What? Where is he? Get in. She hesitated. The man noticed. I won't harm you. I was sent to bring you. She looked back down the road. Her house was still far. Her mother was still weak. She looked at the man again. Then she stepped into the SUV. The door closed behind her. The car moved. The ride was silent. The windows were tinted. She couldn't see outside. Her hands were sweating. After almost 30 minutes, the car pulled into a compound. The gate opened automatically. She saw lights, flowers, clean tiles, and big windows. This was not a normal house. It was a mansion. The car stopped. The driver opened her door. Come in. She stepped out slowly. Another man opened the front door. Welcome, Miss Adiz. She walked inside. The floor was made of marble. A chandelier hung from the ceiling. The air smelled like fresh flowers. She had never seen anything like it. She stood still. Then she heard footsteps. She turned. Baba Musa was walking down the stairs. Not sitting. Not using a stick. Not wearing old clothes. He was in a white flowing agbada, shoes shining, head held high. And his eyes were clear. He wasn't blind. He had never been. Adiz stared at him, mouth open. He smiled. Good evening, daughter. Adiz couldn't speak. She just stood at the bottom of the wide staircase, staring at the man who was now walking toward her. Calm, tall, and confident. It was Baba Musa, but it wasn't. His face was the same. His voice was the same. But his clothes were spotless white. His eyes, which were always hidden behind those dark glasses, were now wide open and bright. No signs of blindness. He wasn't hunched. He wasn't limping. He wasn't holding a walking stick. He was standing like a man who owned the place. Adiz felt her throat tighten. Baba? The man stopped in front of her and smiled. My name is not really Baba Musa, he said gently. It's Alhaji Musa Ibrahim. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Her body felt frozen. You're confused, he said kindly. I know. Please, sit down. He pointed to a cream-colored sofa in the large living room. Adiz sat slowly, her eyes never leaving his face. He sat opposite her and leaned forward. I'm sorry for hiding the truth from you for so long, he said. But I had to be sure. I had to see you for who you truly are. Adiz frowned. I don't understand. You were blind. You sat by the road every day. You begged. I never begged, he replied softly. I only sat there. It was people who gave. But why? Why did you pretend? He took a deep breath and looked down for a moment. A few years ago, I lost everything. Or rather, I thought I did. I had money. Plenty of it. I had houses, cars, workers, even a private jet. But I was lonely. Everyone around me was fake. They only smiled because of my money. When my health failed for a while, they all disappeared. Adiz listened, her heart racing. I recovered, he continued. But I didn't want to go back to that life. I needed to see if true kindness still existed. Not the kind that's loud. Not the kind that's looking for praise. The quiet kind. The kind that gives without expecting. His voice became even softer. So, I left everything. I dressed as a poor man. Sat on the street. Just watched. Day after day, people passed. Some laughed. Some insulted me. Others gave me small money, but only when people were looking. He looked up at her. But then, you came. Adiz swallowed hard. You gave without anyone watching. You gave even when you didn't have enough. And you did it every single day. She looked away. I didn't do anything special. He leaned back and smiled. To you, maybe. But to me, it meant everything. You reminded me of something I had forgotten. What it means to give with your heart. Adiz's hands were shaking now. So all this time, you were testing me. Not testing, he said gently. Observing. Hoping. And you passed. She blinked fast, not sure if she was angry or still in shock. I lost my stall, she whispered. I lost money. My mother is sick. And you were sitting there every day, watching me suffer, just to see if I was kind. He looked hurt by her words, but he nodded. I know. And I'm sorry. I didn't want you to suffer. But if I had shown myself too soon, it would not have been real. Kindness under pressure is the strongest kind. And now, because of you, I know there is still goodness in this world. Adiz stood up, tears filling her eyes. But I'm still poor. I'm still tired. My mother is dying. What does it matter if I passed or failed? He stood too. It matters now. He clapped his hands. A young woman came in, carrying a small box and a file. Bring it here, he said. She placed it on the glass table in front of Adiz and stepped back. Open it, Alhaji Musa said. Adiz slowly opened the box. Her mouth dropped open. Inside was a check. Not just any check. It was written in her name. 10 million Nigerian nairas. 10 million naira. She stepped back, covering her mouth. I don't understand, she whispered. That's for you, he said calmly. To start your life again. To rebuild your business. To take care of your mother. And to rest. You deserve rest. Adiz shook her head. This is too much. I can't take this. Yes, you can, he said. You earned it. I didn't do anything. You gave even when you were empty. That's more than most people ever do. She sat down again, still staring at the check. The woman beside him brought out a folder and opened it. She will help you register your business, he explained. A real food company. With branches. We'll support you every step of the way. Adiz blinked at him. Why me? Because you gave, he said. And because your heart stayed soft in a hard world. She burst into tears. Alhaji Musa walked over and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. It's okay, he said softly. Let it out. She cried for a long time. Then finally, she wiped her face and looked up. My mother. She needs to go to the hospital. He nodded. Come with me. They left the house in his car. This time, she sat in the front seat, not scared. He called a private doctor on the way. When they got to the hospital, nurses were already waiting. They admitted her mother immediately. Adiz sat beside her in the hospital room, holding her hand. Alhaji Musa stood by the door, watching quietly. Her mother opened her eyes and smiled faintly. Is this a dream? She asked weakly. No, Adiz said, crying again. It's real, Mama. Everything is going to be okay. Her mother looked at the man behind her. Thank you. He smiled. Thank your daughter. She saved herself. As the nurses worked, Adiz stepped outside with him. Why didn't you help me earlier? She asked again. He looked at her for a long time. Sometimes, people have to walk through fire to see how strong they are. But I was watching. I was always watching. She nodded slowly. I still don't understand everything, she said. But, thank you. You don't need to understand it all, he said. Just live well. Help others. Be the reason someone else keeps believing. She smiled through her tears. I will. They stood there in silence for a while. Then he looked at his driver and gave a nod. Take her home. She'll find a surprise waiting. What surprise? Adiz asked. He smiled. You'll see. She returned to her street an hour later. A black van was parked near her old stall spot. Men in uniforms were unloading boxes. She ran forward. "What's going on?" she asked. One man turned and smiled. "Are you Miss Adiz?" "Yes. We're here to set up your new kiosk." "What?" "Paid in full. You now have a license from the state government. Clean stall. Big signboard. Everything." She stood there in shock as they fixed a new food cart with her name written in bold letters. Kind Bites. She covered her mouth again. Her neighbors gathered around, clapping and asking questions. Some of them were in disbelief. Then she saw Ngozi. Her eyes were wide. Her mouth open. She walked toward Adiz. "So, it's true." Adiz nodded slowly. Ngozi looked away. "I didn't know. I didn't know you were helping a rich man in disguise." Adiz said nothing. "I was wrong," Ngozi muttered. Adiz turned to her. "You were loud in judgment, but silent in kindness." Ngozi swallowed hard. "I'm sorry." Adiz didn't reply. She just looked at the men building her stall and smiled. When everything was ready, she stepped forward and opened the counter. The first customer came. A young girl. Adiz handed her a piece of puff puff and smiled. The girl looked confused. "But I didn't pay." Adiz nodded. "It's free today." She looked at the crowd. First 100 people. Eat for free. The street erupted in cheers. Some people clapped. Some laughed. Some even cried. In the distance, inside a black car, Alhaji Musa watched quietly. He didn't come out. He just smiled and nodded. Then he told the driver, "Let's go." As the car pulled away, Adiz turned and looked down the road. Though she couldn't see him anymore, she felt it. She knew he had been there. And just like that, everything had changed. But she hadn't. Her heart was still the same. And that made all the difference. The next morning, Adiz woke up before the sun rose. But this time she wasn't worried. She didn't have to carry her old rusty stove on her head. She didn't have to worry about spoiled flour or a torn umbrella. She didn't have to wonder how much she would make. This time, she smiled as she got ready. The hospital had called early to say her mother had slept peacefully through the night. They even sent a picture, her mother, smiling in clean clothes, sitting upright on a hospital bed with a cup of hot tea. Adiz had cried when she saw it. Not from pain, but from relief. Now, as she tied her scarf and stepped outside, the morning air felt new. Brighter. Softer. For the first time in many months, she didn't feel tired before the day had started. The new kiosk was standing proud at the junction. The silver counter was spotless, and the sign above it read clearly, "Kind Bites. A taste of love in every bite." She didn't know who came up with the slogan, but she loved it. As she reached the spot, her heart beat faster. A small crowd was already waiting. Children with coins in their hands. Bus drivers holding empty bread. Workers on their way to offices, standing quietly. Adiz stepped into the kiosk and wore the new apron they had made for her. It was red, clean, and soft. She looked around and breathed in. She could do this. She turned on the gas stove. No more charcoal. She placed her hands above the flame and smiled. It was warm. The first customer was a young boy with a bruised chin and no shoes. "How much is one puff puff, auntie?" he asked shyly. Adiz smiled. "First 5 are free today. What's your name?" "Cheka." "Well, Cheka, thank you for coming." She handed him a paper pack with 5 fresh puff puff balls. He ran off happily, not believing his luck. The next customer stepped forward, and the day began. By 9 a.m., the line was long. People were whispering about her. Some were curious. Some were just hungry. But most of them had heard the story already. The kind food seller who gave to a blind beggar every day. And it turned out he was a billionaire. Whispers floated through the crowd. She helped him without knowing. She used to give him money even when she had nothing. She deserves everything she's getting. Adiz heard the whispers, but she stayed focused. Then she heard a familiar voice. So this is where the magic happened. She turned. Ngozi, wearing jeans and a shiny top. hair packed high, lip gloss sparkling. Standing beside her was Ikenna, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Adiz blinked and wiped her hands with a napkin. Good morning. Ngozi stepped closer. Your name is everywhere, Adiz. People are even calling you the girl with the golden heart. Adiz didn't respond. Ikenna looked around. This kiosk is fine. Sharp. I didn't expect all this. I didn't expect it either, Adiz said. Ngozi forced a laugh. To think we were mocking you. Him. Adiz said nothing. She scooped akara into a bowl and handed it to a woman in line. Ngozi watched her. You don't want to talk to us? Adiz looked up slowly. What do you want me to say? Ngozi shifted. I just came to say sorry. For real this time. Adiz's face was calm. You laughed at me when I was low. Now you want to talk because I'm rising. Ngozi's voice softened. It's not like that. We didn't know. I knew, Adiz said, not raising her voice. I knew what I was doing. I didn't need to know who he was. Ikenna stepped forward. We get it, Adiz. You did good. But don't act like you're better than us. I'm not acting, Adiz replied. I'm just busy. She turned back to the stove. Ngozi stood there for a second, then smiled tightly. Congrats. Anyway, I mean it. She and Ikenna walked away. A customer in line leaned forward. Those girls? They used to mock you. Adiz nodded. I know. The woman smiled. You've handled them well. You didn't shout or show off. That's real class. Adiz gave a small smile. I'm just doing what I've always done. Cooking and being kind. By afternoon, someone brought a camera. A man with a microphone introduced himself. We're from a local TV station, he said. Can we interview you? Adiz was nervous but agreed. They asked questions. Why did you give to a blind beggar every day? Did you know he was a billionaire? What advice do you have for others? Her answers were simple. I gave because I wanted to. I didn't know who he was. I didn't care. I just believe that helping someone, even a little, is never wasted. By evening, her story was already online. People were reposting it. Some called her a miracle girl. Others called her the girl who gave and received. But she didn't feel famous. She felt grateful. Later that night, she went to the hospital. Her mother was sitting up, smiling at a nurse. Look at you. Adiz laughed. You're forming fine woman already. Her mother grinned. I told you I was strong. Adiz sat beside her. The doctor said you can go home soon. Her mother's eyes watered. You did all this, Ada. Adiz shook her head. We did it together. You never gave up on me. Her mother looked at her for a long time. And you never stopped helping others, even when you needed help yourself. Adiz held her hand. I just wanted to do the right thing. You did more than that. You changed everything. On Sunday morning, there was a knock at her door. She opened it and gasped. Alhaji Musa was standing there with a small boy holding a wrapped box. Good morning, daughter, he said. Alhaji. She stepped aside. Please come in. He entered quietly. The room was still small, but clean and fresh. Her mother was sitting on the bed with a head tie and wrapper. Good morning, sir, she said. Good morning, madam. You look better. She smiled. Thanks to you. He turned to Adiz. I came to bring something else. The small boy stepped forward and handed her the box. She opened it slowly. Inside was a brand new business license, stamped and signed, with her name in gold ink. You're now the official owner of Kind Bites, he said. The papers are yours. And that's not all. He handed her another envelope. Inside was a land document. Adiz stared at it. You now have a plot of land on the mainland. You can build your first restaurant when you're ready. Her mouth fell open. Why? She whispered. Because you're the kind of person who makes the world better, he said. And I believe in you. She sat down slowly. This is too much. He smiled. It's just the beginning. Later that week, a customer asked Adiz a question. Why do you call it kind bites? She wiped her hands and looked up. Because every bite should remind someone that kindness still exists. The customer nodded slowly. I like that. Then a little boy in line tugged at her apron. Auntie, do you still give to beggars now that you're rich? She bent down to his level. I still give, she said. But now I also teach others to give too. He grinned. One day, I want to help people too. She tapped his nose. Start now. Kindness doesn't wait. That evening, as she closed her stall, she looked across the road. The mango tree was still there, but Baba Musa was not. She walked over slowly and sat under it. For a few moments, she closed her eyes and listened to the wind. Then she whispered, Thank you for watching me, even when I didn't know. She stood up and walked back. Her apron was dusty. Her hands were oily. Her back was tired. But her heart was full. She had nothing once. But now she had something worth more than money. She had purpose. And she would spend the rest of her life pouring that purpose into others. One bite at a time. 1 year later, the junction looked completely different. Where Adiz's small metal kiosk used to stand, now stood a neat building with large glass windows. A big red sign above it read, Kind Bites Express. A taste of love in every bite. The smell of fresh bread, hot puff-puff, fried plantain, and akara floated in the air. Customers came in and out with brown paper bags. Some ate at the small tables outside. Others took their food and hurried back to work. Inside, Adiz stood behind the main counter, wearing a white apron with her name stitched in red letters. Her hair was packed neatly in a scarf, and she was smiling as she handed change to a little girl who had just bought a pack of pancakes. Thank you for coming, Adiz said. Thank you, Auntie Adiz, the girl replied, then ran out happily. Adiz turned and walked into the small office at the back of the shop. Inside, her mother sat behind a desk, reading through a file with a pair of glasses. Mama, why are you always checking numbers? Adiz teased. Her mother looked up and smiled. Because it's my job now. You're the face of this place, Adiz. I'm the brain behind the records. Adiz laughed and leaned on the table. You've changed, oh. Now you're acting like accountant. Her mother smiled again, but then her face softened. Sometimes I still think I'm dreaming. Adiz sat down. Me too. Every morning, I wake up and wonder how all this happened. Her mother reached for her hand. It happened because you stayed true to yourself. Even when life was hard, you didn't let your heart become bitter. Adiz looked at the framed picture on the wall beside the door. It was a photo of her and Alhaji Musa, standing in front of the first Kind Bites kiosk. He had one arm over her shoulder, and they were both smiling. Below the photo, a quote was printed. When the heart gives without noise, blessings return without warning. She stared at the words for a moment. I wonder where he is now, Adiz said. Her mother shrugged. He doesn't like noise. Maybe he's out there helping another person. Adiz nodded slowly. I hope so. There was a knock on the office door. Ngozi peeped in. The people from the NGO are here. Adiz stood up quickly. I almost forgot. She walked out to the front, where two women were standing with clipboards and matching yellow shirts. Good afternoon, one of them said. Good afternoon, Adiz replied with a smile. Welcome to Kind Bites. The woman looked around. It's beautiful. And the smell. I'm already hungry. Adiz laughed. I'll pack something for you before you leave. The woman cleared her throat. We're very proud of the work you've done. Your foundation has been feeding over 200 children every week. That's not small. It's changing lives. Adiz nodded. We just want to give the way others gave to us. The second woman spoke up. We also saw the news that you've opened branches in 3 other locations. What's your next plan? Adiz smiled, her eyes shining. A training center, she said, for young girls. We want to teach them how to bake, how to fry, how to run a food business. Not just give them food, but teach them how to cook it too. The women clapped quietly. God bless you, Adiz, one of them said. She nodded. Amen. As they left, Ngozi came to stand beside her. Ngozi was no longer the same girl from last year. She now worked at Kind Bites full-time, handling packaging and deliveries. Her makeup was lighter, her voice softer. Life had humbled her in a quiet way. Are you sure I should be here? She asked Adiz again. Adiz turned to her. You've asked that question 10 times. Ngozi looked down. I just feel like I don't deserve all this. You said sorry. You changed. That's enough. Ngozi looked at her. You forgave me, even when I mocked you. Adiz shrugged. I remember what it felt like to be ignored. I won't do that to someone else. Ngozi smiled, tears in her eyes. Thank you. At that moment, Ikenna came in, holding a large sack of flour. Where should I drop this? Kitchen, Adiz said, pointing. Ikenna carried it in, sweating. Ngozi turned and whispered, she still finds it hard to say thank you, but she's trying. Adiz smiled. That's all that matters. By evening, the shop was closed. Adiz and her team swept the floors, washed the pots, and counted the day's sales. After everything was done, Adiz went out to sit on a bench under the mango tree across the road. The same tree where Baba Musa had once sat, day after day. The wind blew softly, and the leaves whispered above her. She looked up. The sky was orange. Peaceful. She closed her eyes and thought about everything. The hunger. The pain. The tears. The little 200 Nigerian nairas she used to give without thinking twice. She remembered sitting on the ground in the rain. She remembered holding her mother's hand, praying she wouldn't stop breathing. And now, she had a business. She had staff. She had hope. A car drove by slowly and stopped. She opened her eyes. A black SUV. Her heart jumped. The window rolled down. It was him. Alhaji Musa. He was older now. More grey in his beard. But his eyes were the same. He stepped out and walked toward her. Adiz, he said warmly. She stood quickly. Alhaji. They hugged briefly. I've been watching from afar, he said. I didn't want to interrupt. She smiled. You're always welcome. You're the one who started all this. He shook his head. No. You are. I just gave you a chance. You did the rest. She sat down again, and he joined her. You look strong, she said. He nodded. I feel strong. Helping others gives me life. She smiled. We're the same then. He looked at the building across the road. You named it Kind Bites. I like that. I wanted people to remember what kindness tasted like. He looked at her with pride. You've built an empire. She nodded. From one tiny puff-puff stand. They both laughed. Then his face turned serious. I came here today to say something important. She leaned forward. What is it? You've passed every test. You've remained humble, giving, and focused. Now it's time for the next step. She looked confused. Next step. He brought out a brown envelope and handed it to her. What's this? Open it. She did. Inside was a set of documents. And a card. The card read, Board of Trustees Appointment, Musa Ibrahim Foundation. She looked up in shock. You want me to? Yes, he said. Help run the foundation with me. Use your story to help more people. We'll build kitchens in 10 states. Train thousands. Feed millions. Adiz's mouth opened, but she didn't speak. I need someone real, he said. Someone I can trust. Someone who understands what hunger feels like, and what hope means. Tears filled her eyes again. I'll do it, she said softly. He smiled. Good. We start next month. They sat there quietly as the sun disappeared. The next week, Adiz stood in front of her new trainees, 15 young girls, ages 12 to 20. They were wearing aprons, holding notebooks. She stood beside a whiteboard that said, Welcome to Kind Bites Academy. She looked at them and smiled. "My name is Adiz," she said. "And I'm just like you. I started with nothing. But one small act of kindness changed my whole life." She paused. "I'm not here to just teach you how to fry a kara or bake bread. I'm here to show you that you can stand. That you can grow. That you can matter." The girls clapped softly. Adiz walked among them. "If you ever feel like nobody sees you, remember this. Kindness has eyes. Someone, somewhere, is watching." One of the girls raised her hand. "Auntie Adiz, will we become rich too?" Adiz smiled. "Maybe, maybe not. But you'll become something better. Strong, brave, free." Another girl raised her hand. "Will you teach us how to open a shop?" "Yes," Adiz said. "And how to treat customers. How to stay humble. How to lead with your heart." They clapped louder this time. Adiz turned back to the whiteboard and began the first lesson. On her birthday, her staff surprised her with a cake. A red one shaped like Puff Puff. She laughed as they sang for her. Her mother brought out a gift box. Inside was a framed sign. It read, "The girl who gave without thinking." She hugged her mother tight. "I love you, Mama. I love you more, Ada." That night, Adiz went back to the mango tree alone. She sat down and closed her eyes. The wind was gentle. She heard footsteps. She opened her eyes, but no one was there. She smiled. Maybe it was the wind. Or maybe. She stood up and whispered, "Thank you, Baba Musa, for watching me, for believing." Then she turned and walked back to her empire. Not just a business. A movement. One bite at a time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like and subscribe. Here is another interesting story to watch. Click to watch now.